This is my first actual YouTube video, so please don't do a Reddit and just start, blowing up my comment section. This is supposed to be a very basic guide to HOI4. It's supposed to be covering mainly all the systems, but simplifying in a way that's easy to digest for new players. Little bit of introductions. I have over 10,000 hours on this game. My Steam profile won't reflect it, but I had a period of time where I didn't have internet all the time. So Steam didn't record offline time as well during that period. So yeah. Anyways, this is be the first part of it. Well, in a series of videos, I should say, but those later videos will go into the actual in depth over everything else. So the first part I should say is mod set because base game has a lot of cool stuff to it, but it could be more. This is the basic mod set I'd recommend to anyone just starting out. It might seem like a lot, but believe me, a lot of these get a lot of the annoying stuff out of the way, makes it so it's more quality of life. Intelligence agency makes agencies a lot more useful. In base game, especially with the DLC they come with, a lot of assistants, they aren't really that useful. They're mainly used as a way to like boost, ideologies in other nations, so you can get them to a certain threshold. Like, if you're trying to recruit like Yugoslavia into Germany, or the Axis, I should say, you need like a 30% minimum for fascist, that kind of thing. Um, you can use them like sabotage and stuff like that, but they aren't really that useful. This adds a lot more in depth, makes them a lot stronger, makes intelligence really useful. And this are mainly quality of life. This just makes it so countries, especially with this one as well, can form, factions and send volunteers because sometimes they don't get access to those decisions. Some nations don't get access to sending volunteers because they don't get it through the focus tree, yada, yada, yada. You'll get the idea. This one is mainly for single player if you're trying to snipe a very tiny nation and not have like Luxembourg or something like that joining the Allies in like 37. Like, it's annoying stuff like that. This one is mainly graphics. If you're playing on a lower end PC, especially have this one, it makes the game run a lot smoother. This one is mainly for people that are playing with puppets. So if you're playing as like the UK, um, your colonies will like to send you like 400 divisions a day that are complete dog water. Do not use them unless you're like scraping the barrel, in which case something has already gone horribly wrong. This one lets you recruit manpower, convert them into manpower equipment, and then sell those in the market. The AI uses this as well, so you can sometimes see China putting like 10,000, well, it's 100 per manpower equipment, but you'll get the idea. You can see China putting like millions of manpower on the market, and you can buy those, and you can get crap like Luxembourg getting like 100,000 manpower and just having enough no manpower to fight Germany. It's ridiculous. This one just lets you, for lack of a better term, if you're playing Germany, you just want to send your entire army to Spain. Yeah, you can do that. It's really useful. Ignore these little icons. Sometimes this is out of date, but I wouldn't be worried about it. Until the game crashes, but I can digress. This one fixes border gore. This one lets you recall volunteers if you don't want your volunteer to be fighting anymore. In base game, you can only fight until the war ends, which is really not really useful. This one is literally just tool packs. This one lets you add equipment. This is mainly for multiplayer. There's a host only version of this, but I use this for fixing border gore, or if the AI does something really stupid, I use this to fix it. Also, lets you release nations and or puppet, so pretty decent stuff. So the basic guideline for this video will be the politics, i.e., the things you need to know for your nation to control it, like ideology, industrial law, advisors, um, army advisors especially, because you got air, navy, and land, the big one. which ones to look out for, manpower laws, and MIOs. I'm not going to make this a 20-minute video going to everything super in depth. I'll have a series of videos after this coming along that'll be going over more of the other stuff. So, there's your guide for that. New game. Don't worry about that. It's just only if you're trying to go as 30 minutes of hell achievement for Poland. Now, if you're starting out, I'd recommend playing as Romania because it's a good starter nation. You have two nations next to you that you can easily take over if you really try to. Yugoslavia is a bit more challenging, but in all honesty, you could probably kill them if you just have like 30 divisions and just steamroll them. So there's that. And your only real enemies are the Soviets. Germany is supposed to ally with you. They even get decisions and focus trees to influence you, I should say. But yeah, as Romania, you get a pretty good chance of taking over the entire Balkans before 1940 if you know your cards right. So just ignoring army, I'll go over this into the next video, but just suffice to say, drag and click, throw it into a single army, X here, that just taps it out. Now this is going to be the main screen you won't want to worry about. This is your leader portrait, usually they have stats underneath their name. This is national spirits or modifiers essentially. This one, especially if you're playing Romania, it'll force you to get decisions to either spend consumer goods, which just lowers the amount of factories you can use, or spend political power, which is this thing right here. Now, to go in order, political power lets you choose stuff like mobilization laws, economy laws, manpower laws, etc., etc. This is mainly used for decisions, which is that kind of stuff here. Stability affects your war support as well. War support essentially lets you build more. Um, Not exactly, but if it affects your economy laws and you need war support for that. Stability is much more important because it allows you to actually increase your factory output, and generally you want to keep this high. 50% and above is what you really want because below 50% you start taking penalties. Manpower laws, that's mainly for army, your factories in total, your fuel. Watch this if you're playing things like Germany and you're using a lot of tanks and vehicles. Your logistics fulfillment, this just tells you if you're missing trucks or something like that. And convoys, you shouldn't really have to worry about that unless you're playing like the UK, because then convoys are everything. Going down the list for further, there's 4 ideology that are in the base game. Mods usually add more, but they're usually just like splitting off so different ideologies. You get democratic, communist, fascist, and non-aligned. Usually non-aligned means you're authoritarian, religious governments, like say, papacy or monarchies. So if you go to Iran, they're non-aligned because it's a monarchy. Going back to it, each ideology has something different going for it. The main bonus for democratic is if you're going for the allies, especially if you want to, brush up with the U.S. and steal guns from them because they like to give those to unlease. 1941 anyone. Communists and fascists have something similar where they can increase their manpower laws pretty decently high, as you can see there. They can also get to more economy pretty decently fast. You can only get to this if you're at war, say if like the Soviets or something. This affects how much resources you have. I'll get into that in another video. But suffice to say, you usually want to keep this at either limited or export focus. If you're playing as a country where you don't have to worry about armies coming in and stealing your resources, free trade is probably the best. But if you're taking a hit to your resources or you're in a deficit, I'd recommend going to limited. If you're extremely scraping the barrel, I recommend going to closed economy, but that's only if you have the resources for everything you need and you're not hurting for civilian factors. Going for political advisors, usually get ones like ideology boosters, so they add more, ideology points for this little pie chart. If you're starting off, say, as Romania, first one I'd recommend getting once you get the political power for it, or PP, is, yes, I know, dick joke, is this. This is increases the amount you get by 15%. The next one I'd recommend getting is this. It increases your civilian factory building speed. Not by a lot, but this kind of stuff can still ball later on to the game. And the last one I would say for either an ideology booster, or if you get the intelligence agency up for it, you can get to another operator. And you can usually have a base game of three. One for starting, another one for this guy, and another one if you get, what is it, 3 or 5 agency upgrades. But I digress. Next bar is the research and production. These are your MIOs. When you go to produce stuff, I'd recommend slapping these on because they can do some pretty powerful stuff, like increasing the amount of stuff you can produce, making them cheaper, boosting stats, etc. Industry, recommend just taking industry. And if you're going later on to get nukes and stuff, I'd recommend this one. Theorist, this mainly just makes doctrines cheaper. I'll go into that later in another video, but suffice to say, your main would should always be military for the land doctrines. You can usually get XP for Air Force pretty decently fast because you don't spend it a lot usually. And the last one is your military, or your chief of staffs. First one is Army. If you're playing on an offensive, I'd recommend choosing the attackers, but usually you only get the option between an attacker or defender. For Romania especially, don't take him if you're going fascist because the game removes him from selection, regardless if you have him chosen or not. So recommend going defensive. For Navy, if you're trying to go for convoy rating like Germany, or you're using mainly smaller vessels like submarines, destroyers, and light cruisers, go convoys, commerce rating. This one just means speed. So if you're just trying to, speedboat everything to death, this is your go-to. And Air Force, which is ground support and air reformer. Always say ground support if you have it. It just makes air fighting a lot easier. You also see a little bit of XP there. XP gain. That is for these. You will need these later on to go more into depth for, say, well, this is an example. If you want to build a tank and you have the Russian DLC downloaded, this is the one you want because this lets you do stuff like this. Don't worry about the stats here. I'll get into that in the next video. But to finish this off, just to give the ideological breakdown, democracy, if you're trying to go to allies, the only thing really beneficial about being democracy is professional army corps and really for command. This makes it so you're able to go through your land doctrine really fast if you're training. So you can get to like midway through almost any doctrine by beginning of the war. Communist is mainly for the Comintern, but you do get something really useful is over here. You can't see it because certain ones are locked by ideology and doctrine, but you have one the community calls the Portrait of Karl Marx. All it does is adds manpower, 500 a week. It's not really that useful, but every year you get about 27,000. So if you're playing something like Luxembourg, that can snowball up if you get communist fast enough. Next one would be fascist, which is the main one everyone would go for. They get to go to war economy really fast. And another thing they have is, you can't see it over here, but they get the option to boost their stability by about 10%. So you can see this usually jumps to about 75% or 80 when you take it. Another one is also the penalties you take when you're in offensive war. Say if you're Germany going out to Poland, it reduces that by about 10%. And the last one is non-aligned. Their unique one is that they're kind of a mix of fascist and communist and gameplay terms. They get some of the ones from fascist, some of the ones from communist, but their main driving point if you can even call it that, is that you usually did get with this. This just makes it so it's more harder for you to join factions or go, send volunteers, guarantee other countries, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and I guess I might as well just cover the MIOs real quick. Um, MIOs, they're essentially little modifiers you can add on. This is the infantry one from Romania. This is the default one, so this is the one you'll see if you choose like Luxembourg as well. Yeah, so you get little modifiers like boosting your infantry equipment, but infantry defense. For reliability, don't worry about reliability. That only really matters on tanks, and even then, it's not too big of a problem. Soft attack, breakthrough. Again, I'll get into that when I do the next video, which will be on army. You just go hover over these, and they're kind of self-explanatory. And I guess the last one should be decisions. This is the mod one. These are the main ones you'll see from base game. This is resources. This lets you get civilian factories if you have trains research, which some nations actually don't from the base game. This one allows you to either boost or drop the power or influence of a certain ideology. Also, if you're trying to go like Romania, you're trying to switch fascist, it's lets you do that much easier, but that one's a little bit tricky. This is just from the mods. This one you want to get from the base game, or, well, right off the bat, I should say, because it allows you to get your civility up higher. And higher civility means more stuff you're getting out of your factories. And this only really affects war support, but when you're at war, you also get decisions to, well, you'll get the war effort options, and it allows you to either boost war support, reduce the amount of consumer goods you need, etc., etc. But yeah, this has been Kugel Blitz. Thank you for watching my video, and I'll see you around.